Shri Hari Om. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Yo Nityamachyutapadam Bhaje Gurukmavyamo Hatasultarani Trinaya Mene Asmadguru Bhagavato Siddhai Kasindho Ramanujasya Charanam Sharanam. Nityasmanatrina Dvaitavasana Pramuchyate Bodhatmakaya Nastasmai Bhagavate Shri Gurave Shri Hridakashi Sudabhantam Shantamanandurupidam Jnanabhavanam Vande Satgurun Shri Satyasai Know that you are the embodiment of Shanti. That prema is the blood that flows through your veins. That your very nature is Ananda. Realize this by actual practice and experience. Without Shanti, it is impossible to see the truth. Just as the rays of the sun are necessary for the blossoming of the flower, so too the rays of Shanti are necessary for the full development of man, for the blossoming of his heart. Only then can he ripen into the realization of the true, eternal, the blissful Brahman. The Brahman, Swami says, is like a boundless, bottomless, shoreless ocean. To realize this Brahman, the goal of life is to realize this Brahman, but to realize this Brahman, we cannot do it until we are established in a state of Shanti. When the mental agitations are distracting us from our own real nature, until and unless they subside, our Yathartha Swarupa will not be revealed to us. Swami gives the example of the ocean itself. Brahman is like the ocean. When you take the ocean, there are numerous waves that arise on the surface of the ocean. They rise and fall. They create so much of tumult, so much of movement, so much of noise they create. It is the power of the sea that is manifested in this manner through the ups and the downs, the crests and the waves and the troughs of the waves. The rise and the fall. Although the ocean is steady and fixed, yet the surface of the ocean is constantly changing, constantly moving. And when we go to the ocean, what do we see? We see the waves. We are excited to see the waves. The big, huge waves rising up and crashing down is what we cheer with joy and clap our hands in glee. We are not concerned about or focused upon the ocean that is creating all of these waves. The ocean itself is still. The ocean itself is fixed. It is changeless. But it's creating these waves and we are carried away by the waves. Literally and figuratively. Sometimes you can get quite carried away by the waves too. Likewise, the Brahman is steady, stable, changeless. But by its power, it produces waves. What are the waves? All the experiences, temporary and shifting experiences of life. Okay, the waves that are created by the Brahman. Pain today, pleasure tomorrow. Joy today, sorrow tomorrow. Victory today, defeat tomorrow. Praise today, blame later. All these dualities are created by the power of the Brahman. It is like the up and the down of the waves. Oru high and oru low. Oru high, oru low. Health, ill health. Praise, blame. Joy, sorrow. Success, failure. There is a crest and a trough in the wave. That is how this Brahman is manifesting a changing nature upon its changeless essential truth. But just as when we go to the beach, we are more caught up by the waves, like that also here in this world, man is more entranced by, more concerned with the attainments that are evanescent and changing, instead of with the unchanging principle behind which is the Brahman. We are not able to fix ourselves on that unchanging principle of the Brahman. That unchanging principle is Shanti. Adan Shanti. Another name for that unchanging Brahman is Shanti. This Shanti is available to everybody. Right now you are feeling Shanti. The Kshanatila, this moment when nothing else is occupying your mind, when you are simply sitting in this quietness and listening to these words about Shanti, you have without effort entered into a state of Shanti. Because at this time you are not focusing on any joy or sorrow, pleasure or pain, failure or defeat. None of those things are in your focus, in your range. Therefore, right now you are in a state of Shanti. What will happen now? This state of Shanti will fade, will be replaced by again ups and downs, because your attention is drawn towards that. All the senses, all the impulses rising up in overpowering strength, like the waves from the sea, roar in fury and subside in the waters. But they do not confer peace. The wise thing is to forget these waves and direct attention towards the sea beneath, which is without any change. Because we are so used to looking at these waves, it appears as though we need a lot of effort to look at the waveless ocean. But the waveless ocean is what always exists. When the wave is there, also the ocean is there. When the wave subsides, also the ocean is there. In between, also it is there. High tide, low tide, whatever it is, the ocean is still there. Therefore, the wise thing is to forget these waves and instead direct your attention, Shraddha Shakti, direct it towards the unchanging sea, which is the underlying truth of these waves. Only then can you attain Shanti, and then you can swim about happily in those undisturbed waters. Swami is narrating this ocean as a theme, as an example. Adanala, he extends the same example, conveys another truth with the help of it. What does he say? In the ocean, there are a lot of fish in the ocean, a lot of denizens of the deep. How are they? Swami says, why are those denizens of the deep so happy? They are happily swimming. We are standing there carried away by the waves, but they are swimming happily. Why? Because the reason is they have water all above them, all around them. Above them, below them, behind them, front of them, all sides there is water. They cannot survive for even a second without it. If they are taken away out of it, they will struggle frantically to get back to it, even at the cost of death. So too, when man is immersed in Shanti, he will experience the joy and the exhilaration of that state. Exhilaration is different to an excitement. That is the beauty here. Anandamna enna. What is Ananda? What is the difference between Ananda and Sukha? Joy, happiness is there in this world. But Ananda is there. Is there a difference between Ananda and bliss and happiness? Always in the Upanishads, Vedas, etc., we use the word Ananda, Ananda, Ananda na chalra. Illaya? Sukham chalra, but Anandam na chalra. Why Anandam? Ananda is joy that is associated with Shanti. Happiness plus peace is equal to bliss. Happiness with excitement is now worldly happiness. Worldly happiness is actually violence. Worldly happiness, the excitement of worldly happiness is actually violence to the body and the mind. It is a form of pain. It is actually a form of pain only. The Ananda that comes with Shanti. In an example, when you jog, when you run, you get a, what do they call it? Runners. Euphoria. Euphoria is there. When you've done a sprint, and after you stop, certain hormones, certain chemicals get produced in the body. Endorphins and cholrale. Those things will make you feel a high. Runner's high. They call it the runner's high. When you run, you feel you're laughing. You're actually laughing. A smile automatically comes to your face. You're not actually smiling, but you're big and you're panting, but you've got a big smile and you're happy. When you're fast asleep, also you're happy. There's happiness in both, but the happiness of sleep is ananda. It is with shanti. The happiness of running is with pain. In fact, the probable reason why you're feeling happy is you've stopped running. Yamadi, finally, we stopped. Don't have to run anymore. Maybe that is the happiness you are getting. Excitement associated with restlessness, or happiness associated with excitement. That is the joys of the world. It is in a form violence only. It is not ahimsa, it is himsa. Ananda, on the other hand, is along with shanti. It is a peaceful happiness, a peaceful exhilaration. Although we use the word exhilaration, you've got to understand it is not like how you see some women, no? Every day they will jump up and down for nothing. It is not like that. That is the problem. Because we are an accepting society, we don't say anything about those kind of people. But in the olden days, those kind of people were, kept in a separate place and not much in contact with the general populace. People now, everything is accepted. They wander around jumping in the middle of the street also. Shanti. Shanti is a depth. Just as the ocean is always compared to Shanti, because what does the ocean have? Unfathomable depths it has got. Shanti is always associated with depth of feeling and thought. Not shallow. It's not shallow, it is very deep. There is a joy and exhilaration, but that exhilaration is associated with peace, with Shanti. And those who have tasted that joy, those who have tasted that true Shanti, the exhilaration of Shanti, can never desert that Shanti stage. If it ever happens that they are forced into Ashanti, they will struggle furiously and desperately wanting to return to that state of Shanti. For instance, once you get into a routine in life, you get up in the morning, you read something, you do something, you chant something, you meditate, you do your prayers, you have a routine, you go through that. And it's so, because it's always associated with the Lord, it is so peaceful. Suppose the routine is disturbed for some reason, you have to go somewhere, some function is there, some wedding is there, something is there, you go. You can't wait to come back to the state of quietness, that state of Shanti. The wedding is exciting, all that is there. But what do you want? You want to come back to the state of Shanti. Yeah. All of us are like that. We want to go on a vacation. We plan for the vacation, we make big hoo-ha about it, we go there, we have fun, we kick and scream. But in the end, we can't wait to get back home. Finally, home, sweet home. Yeah, who wants to constantly live in the holiday place? We want to come back home. Home is Shanti. That homing instinct is there in all of us. It is not merely homing instinct, it is actually oming instinct. Om, instinct. Om is Shanti, Brahman. We want to go back to the Brahman. We will come back to that Brahman. We think we don't know the Brahman. We think we don't know where the Brahman is. Not so. If you allow yourself to be free, if you can avoid being entangled with the world and let go, you will automatically come to the Brahman. That is why Alvar says, Vittadu patrenil utradu viduyir. The moment your entanglements go away, automatically you will realize the truth. Because truth is already realized. Truth is already present. Everybody knows the way home. You can never get lost. You can get entangled. You cannot get lost, but you can get diverted, distracted. You can always come back home. Adinala, When a person who has experienced Shanti, if he ever gets out of the state, then he will become desperate in his struggles to get to once again come back into Shanti. He can ever be in a state of bliss, immersed in the ocean of Shanti, isn't it? Why should he get out of that state? Why should such a person ever get out of the state and then try to risk his life to get back into Shanti? Why not remain in Shanti? Abdina, because of the vasanas and the sankalpas that are there in us, they are the ones that bring us up to the shallows again. The denizen of the deep is floating happily, swimming happily in the depths of the ocean. But should it, out of curiosity, come up to the top, then it may very well find itself beached on the shore. Because once it's caught up in the waves, then perhaps it loses the strength to remain in the ocean. The waves, if they crash it towards the shore, then it may be helpless and come and be flung far into the shore away from the water. What should we do, Abdina? Never float up to the surface. Never float up to the surface, always remain in the depths. Surface, the waves are only in the surface. All the waves are only in the surface. Under the waves, beneath the waves, there is only eternal peace. Yeah. So why do you want to come up to the top? Why do you come up to the top? Because of curiosity. What is there? What is here? I want to peek. I want to see. I want to know. Shantama Kandanda. See why is your dhyana disturbed? You are sitting and doing dhyana. Somebody is having a conversation. You do your dhyana. No, they are disturbing me. They are not disturbing you. You want to know what is going on there. So you cannot control your curiosity to find out what is going on there. Instead, you want them to shut up. So what do we say? Shh! Don't disturb me. They are, unless they are talking to you, they are not disturbing you. Yes or no? You are sitting in meditation. Hey. If they come and disturb you, call you, then they are disturbing. They are doing something on their own. How can you call that a disturbance? Because your mind is wanting to go out and dabble in that. Poke its nose into it. So we cannot blame them. We can only blame our own lack of Shraddha within. Because our Shraddha is going out. Shraddha is there. Shraddha is there. Power of attention is there. Except it is not focused within. It is going outside. So dive deeper and try to revel in the calmer depths. This is the most urgent task. Then you will not endanger yourself by being thrown out and beyond upon the dry shore. So, niyadane valukka time vella vara. Risk thane. Don't dabble in the shallows. Don't rise up to the shallows. Remain in the depths. In the depths, at the depths of where you are very safe in God. Like things happen in the world. We should not unnecessarily get curious about all those things. Otherwise, we will lose our peace. Every time we get curious about the world, we lose our peace. Yeah. I don't know. Some people are talking. What's going on? What are you talking about? Abdina, you are actually talking about what a rotten fellow you are. You lost your peace. They are talking something. They are talking. You keep quiet. No problem. But what are you talking about? What are you talking about? They're talking about how rotten you are. This type of pure and holy Shanti will also remove the walls that divide man from man. It will transform absurd hatreds, misunderstandings, disgusts, and prejudices that warp human behavior. Shanti is the manifestation of the greatness of Prema. Prema's Mahima is manifested in the form of Shanti. When love becomes magnificent, magnified, it becomes Prema, it becomes Shanti in us. And anybody who comes into contact with it will be filled with the authority and the power to do good to everybody. It can place, Swami makes a very beautiful statement, it can place, when this Prema ripens and becomes Shanti, it can place man within God's grasp and God within man's grasp. It can place us within his and him within our grasp. There can be no higher power than this. Sadhana can confer no higher power than this. That is this Shanti that will enable us to be within his grasp and him to be within our grasp. It is a very secret of the life principle in creation. It is the highest individualization of the glory of the Atma. It is the magic wand. Swami actually uses the word in Telugu, but the translation for it is magic wand only. Because when I saw magic wand, I said, did Swami say magic wand? And actually when I heard the Telugu word, it was very similar. Karadandam, something he says in it. It is the stick that he has in his hand with which he can perform all miracles. He can master the entire world with the Shanti in his hand. How, Abdina? It confers the greatest degree of contentment in him. Prahlada says, tells his father, you've conquered all the worlds, but you've not conquered yourself. And because you've not conquered yourself, you do not have any contentment. Because you don't have any contentment, you are still a slave to yourself. You're not a master. How should you become a master, Abdina? Swami says, learn from the life history of Prahlada the lesson. In the lesson, that the Lord alone is to be loved. Learn from the life of Prahlada the lesson that the Lord alone is to be loved. Learn also the technique of that process. Learn the fact that first God alone should be loved. And how should I do this? What is the technique, Abdina? Swami says, do the work that has fallen to your lot. Do the work that has come to you. Give up everything that is outside of the service of the Lord. Follow the footsteps of Prahlada. You can win through the grace of that Lord the joy of Shanti, the thrill of fullness, and the bliss of immortality. Shanti is not mere inactivity. Shanti means, I'll just sit quietly, not doing anything. That is not Shanti. That is why Swami brings Prahlada as example. Prahlada did everything. Go to school, he went to school. Study, he studied. But in his mind, only God should be loved. Life is for the Lord. Everything is for God. Everything is for God. Everything else he forgot. God is the only thing that mattered to him. Our lives also, again and again and again, the Unnada message. See how many times Swami has repeated this central message in Prashanti Vahini so many times. Your life is for God. First of all. Not for you, not for your family, not for the people around you, not for society. It is only for God. It is there so that you can use this lifespan to love Him. You can use this lifespan to love Him in a way, in such a glorious way that brings Ananda to you. All of us have a allotted lifespan only. That will not be extended. The sooner you begin to love God, the longer you have to love Him in this lifespan. Simple as that. It's as simple as that. The more you postpone, the lesser the time you have got in your hands. Then by the time you start to love Him, somebody will come knocking on the door. Let us start early. You will find the wonder is, no matter how early you start, you will still find it is not enough time. That's a different story. It's a different story. No matter when you start to love Him, you will still find that there is so much of Him to be loved. He's not little, he's Perumal. He's a big man. He's a big being. Lifetimes are not enough to love Him completely and entirely. That being the case, how can we waste our time with all kinds of useless pursuits which prevent us from loving Him? See, if you pursue your career with great vigor, with great mental vigor, pursuing there's two different things. I've repeated it, but if you get it, you are lucky. You have to go to your job. But don't pursue it. Can you understand the difference between the two? Do it, but don't seek it. Don't pursue it. Don't desire it. Mind space is for God only, not for job, not for children, not for family, not for any of those things. It is for God. Be in it all. Don't hate anybody. Don't detest anything. Be in your jobs, be in your studies, be in your families, be in the world. Let any job that has come to you, allotted to you, do it. But heart is for Ishvara. Heart is for God. That is all we have got to understand. That is all we have got to master. Because the moment you take that attention and place it on something else, whatever little bit of attention span you have got on God weakens, it erodes it. It starts to eat it away. Yara irkatum. Let it be anybody I have seen, that they may be filled with extraordinary love for God, but if they divert themselves into other things, that love that they had will be in the past tense only. It will start to diminish. It will start to diminish. Srimad Bhagavatatila, when Arjuna comes back after Krishnavataram has finished, comes back to Hastinapura, falls at the feet of Dharmaraja, Yudhishthira, and says, Alas, Vanchitoham Maharaja, Harina Bandhurupina, Krishna has left us. Abdini starts to cry. Apo, Yudhishthira says, Why are you crying so much? Anagatam, Bhagavan gave Bhagavad Gita to you. Sakshat Krishna gave Bhagavad Gita to you. Why don't you remember that Bhagavad Gita and be happy? Abdina. Kala karma tamo ruddham marandu petene anna. I have forgotten the Gita. I forgot what he said. How can you forget now? Kala karma tamo ruddham. Because of the passage of time and the number of things I became involved in thereafter, that experience is sliding from my grasp. Think about the most beautiful trip that you ever made to Prashanti. How many of those details remain? How much of that bliss remains? How much of that feeling of connection remains? With effort, if you sit down and try, maybe you can grasp it a little bit and say, Swami looked at me, Swami smiled at me. Anna, it is also now a mental exercise only. You're trying to make yourself happy, thinking you should be happy because Swami looked at you and smiled at you. Anna, spontaneous, why not? When you finished that incident and came back, how are you? All through in the flight, how are you? When you landed here, how are you? The next 1 week, how are you? Or most of the time, you'll be asked to speak in the center, no? The center has this useless habit. Anybody goes to Patti, come and share your experiences. And they'll come, blah, 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 blah. But how are you at that time? Even then, when you're sharing it, how are you? After that, what happened? Now what has happened? Your mind has become distracted, diverted. So many places it has gone. It has revisited so many places. Therefore, it has forgotten that sweetness that it enjoyed, encountered there. The more things you are going to give your mind to, the lesser will be the experience of the divine within. That is why reduce. So-called social commitments are not necessary for those who are committed to Ishvara, to God. And now, each social commitment is going to take you away from that sweetness. And the anandam pointe irukum. Unless you are mature enough to see Him in those commitments also. But don't assume that you already, most people would like, just because they don't want to give up the social commitment, everything is God. They'll say, isn't everything Swami? Swami already tackled that question earlier on in Prashanti Vahini. Swami made it very clear. He said, to say everything is God without experiencing it is a great sin. Because if everything is God, you will have no likes and dislikes. If everything is God, you will have no ups and downs. If everything is God, you will always be happy. If you cannot be always happy, you have not realized everything is God. So don't you dare open your mouth and lie through your teeth that everything is God. Not only are you wrong, you are also committing a grave sin, says Swami. That is why in the Prashanti Vahini, that is why we should read Prashanti Vahini. Otherwise, very glibly, we will be going mouthing around, everything is God, everything is God, everything is God. For convenience sake, we will say it. Swami cautions us. It is Daiva Droha. It is a betrayal to the Lord. You are committing a grave sin against the Lord by claiming everything is God without living that. So, don't endanger yourself by coming up to the shore, to the shallows, to the waves, because you will be thrown out to the dry shore. You never know when one wave will be so powerful that it will leave you high and dry on the shore, and then you will have to struggle to get back. Maybe you will never get back. I never know what's the use. Never let go of the inner connection. Too many worldly things are not necessary for us. The more time you spend in the world, the more you'll be dragged out by it. It's not that, oh, I'll just go for a few hours here and come back inside. You will not be able to come back inside. You will never go back and connect to the depths that you were perhaps connecting to once upon a time. So, keep it to the bare minimum. அதுக்கு தான் சுவாமி என்ன சொல்றார்? What does Swami say அப்படின்னா, Shanti, although it is not inactivity, you should not spend your time in eating and sleeping, saying to yourself that the Lord will come to your help when the need arises. You must rise up and work. Do the work that has fallen to your lot efficiently, sincerely. Give up everything else that is outside the service of the Lord. Your duty, your dharma, you have got to do. That has come to your life. Rest of the things that you're seeking, that you're searching for, that is not necessary. If at all you should search for anything, Bhagavad Kainkaryam, serving the Lord you should search for. Give me an opportunity to serve you, Abadini you can search for. But it is useless to search for everything else. And I want this, I want that, I want name, I want fame, I want reputation. I want wealth, I want family. Abadini, we are going behind all these things. We are searching for all of those things. As we go behind and search for all of those things, we are losing something much, much, much more precious. Now don't go. If it comes to you, you deal with it nicely, you deal with it. Your family comes and talks to you. Talk to them with so much love that they feel that they alone are important to you. They should feel like that. But don't go and talk to them. Don't go and seek them out. If they seek you, be so sweet to them that they feel completely fulfilled. You don't go seek them out. Be loving to everybody, but don't be attached to anybody. Enjoy everything, but don't desire anything. You should know this balance. Enjoy everything that you have got, no problem. You have a good car, drive it. Oh, it's a nice car. And if I drive it, maybe I will be distracted from God. I'll just keep it alive. If you have a good car, drive it. If you have good clothes, wear them. If you have good food, eat it. If you have a good family, enjoy it. Enjoy the family. Enjoy your children. Enjoy your domestic bliss. Nothing wrong. Which has come to you. Don't seek it. Don't go seeking. Do not take any initiative. Sarvaramba parityagi yo madbhakta same priyaha. Bhagavan says in the Bhagavad Gita, he who never takes any initiative in this world, he is my devotee dear to me. ஒரு இனிஷியேட்டிவ் எடுக்கப்படாதான். ஏன் என்னத்துக்கு? ஃபார் வாட்? ஐ வில் கெட் காட். நானா மெனக்கிட்டு போய் நான் உனக்கு அதை பண்றேன், இதை பண்றேன், அவளை பண்றேன், அவளை ஒன்றும் வேண்டாம். In Tiruvannamalai, after Ramana Bhagavan's time, there were many sadhakas living there and performing worship sadhana. இப்போ அகிலாண்டம்மான்னு ஒரு அம்மா இருந்தா. அகிலாண்டம்மா, தேசூரம்மா. She was also staying there. And Kanakamma also was there at that time. Kanakamma was a young lady. And several of these sadhus were there. Ellam Kunjuswami and Mari Annamalai Swami or Sabmurganar, all of them were there. They were living their lives with Bhagavan. After Bhagavan's Mahasamadhi, they were still living around in Tiruvannamalai, continuing their sadhana. Most of the time was spent in dhyana or vichara or parayana, girivalam, giri pradakshinam, like this they were spending their lives. Appo Kanakamma suddenly felt an urge and she made snacks for everybody. Murukko enathiyo pannirka podu. Ellarkum pannuvom appdi murukko or something she made and she gave it to everybody. For all these people, she came and gave a packet to everybody. But Akhilandamma looked at that and said, "What are you wasting your time for all this? Why do all these initiatives? You think it's your love that you're doing, but you're actually getting caught into all of this. Can this time not be spent in vichara? Spend this time in sadhana." Not only that, these people themselves are trying to live their lives in simple, austere ways. They will eat that murukku and say, "You were only 4 pieces. I wish there was a 5th piece." These people did not have any desire. They never desired the murukku. They were living their lives happily. You give them 4 pieces of murukku. Murukku is a little bit moreish. You need to have one more. So many people, maybe 4 she made. After you eat all the 4, 1/5 one you will want. Or you'll say, "I'll keep this for tomorrow." And I waste. So don't take such initiatives. She cautions her. We think we are doing the right thing. Avashyamilla, tumhe avashyamilla. Somebody asks you, never say no. Somebody asks, can you do this? Definitely, yes. No matter what, I will do it. They've asked you. Niya pe panna de. You don't go out of your way to do it. Bhagavan himself doesn't do it. Bhagavan himself doesn't do it. Krishna avataratla eduthukonga. See Krishna, how much he loved the Pandavas. How much he loved the Pandavas, how much he loved Arjuna. In fact, he was the one who was saying, I will see that you are crowned. But when it came to the war, Krishna sitting quietly. Then Duryodhana and Arjuna take it upon themselves to go and ask for help. He doesn't offer his help even to the Pandavas. Quite dark. Apo Duryodhana and Arjuna end up in his room at the same time. And Bhagavan looks up and asks Arjuna, what do you want? For the war I came for some help. Duryodhana says, hey, I also come. So, okay. Since both of you have come, this is my condition. One of you can have my army, Vaishnavi Sena. The other person can have me. Me alone, without any weapons, I will not fight. I will not fight in this war. Both of you are relatives to me in a way. So I will not fight in this war. I will lend my army to one side. The other side, I will be there, but without fighting. Arjuna chooses Krishna. But even then, Arjuna has to choose him. Krishna doesn't offer anything. Yeah, not only that. Bhagavad Gita is so famous. And Bhagavad Gita was given to Arjuna. And when was it given to Arjuna? Arjuna says, Bhagavan, give me something. Teach me the truth. Tell me. Aparna Bhagavan gives it. No, Bhagavan doesn't say, look Arjuna, I love you really. I'll take the initiative to teach you. Bhagavan Ashwarna. Bhagavan doesn't do it. Bhagavan himself doesn't take initiatives. Why should we? Don't go out of your way to do anything. But where there is a need, it has to be fulfilled. Need is the trigger already. You have not taken the initiative. The need is the initiative. You are merely fulfilling, you are merely reacting to the trigger called the need. Somebody is in need, you help them. Swami evla seva pannar. Swami organized so much seva for everybody. Go do Grama Seva. Why? The need of the people was the trigger. You are merely fulfilling that need. That's all right. That's all right. So this doesn't apply to seva. This rule does not apply to helping others and serving. Where does it apply? You desiring things it applies. Oh, I want something. You are desiring, I want something. Why do you want something? Is necessity. The necessity becomes the initiative, the trigger for you to go and get it. You moved into a new house. You gotten married, you moved into a house. You need a fridge. You need a washing machine. You can't live without it, no? So that's fine. We buy all of those things. There's nothing wrong with it. These are all necessities that you are fulfilling. These do not count as initiatives. Now, when you are sitting, you have desires. I want to go on a holiday. I want to go out and eat. I want to do this. I want to do that. These are not necessary, not necessities. Every non-necessity that you are planning to fulfill will take you away from God. Won't the necessity take you away from God? It will also. But what to do? Necessary evil. You don't have a job. Even there, what should you do? You've got to do it in such a way that it never clashes with your appointment with God. With your connection with God, it should not clash. You have to buy a fridge. You have to buy a fridge. But should you buy a fridge when satsang is going on? Definitely not. It's simple, it's common sense. When satsang is there, but that is exact time when I have to go buy a fridge. That's foolish. Not necessary. If satsang munja you can buy the fridge. Yeah. Or use that itself as an opportunity to talk to God. Which fridge shall I get, Swami? Make it an ongoing interaction with God. Should I get this fridge, Swami? Should I get this fridge, Swami? What should I get? Research panna. What it tells you, Swami to present panna. Present everything to Swami. Sit quietly for 20 minutes. Find an answer from Swami. Go and buy it. So what has happened? Your fridge buying exercises become a meditation, a communion, a communication with God. And that is how we should transform all these necessities also into a divine adventure. But that doesn't mean we should go out of our way. Anything that is not a service to the Lord should be discarded. Give up everything that is outside the service of the Lord. Follow the footsteps of Prahlada. You can win through the grace of God, Shanti and Ananda. Work has to be undertaken. Swami never said do not work. Swami gave so much work to so many people. Everybody was busy working. Work should be undertaken. Why? Abdina? Swami says, so that time might not hang heavily upon you and be a burden. If you have nothing to do, what will happen? Idle mind from devil's workshop. Nothing to do. Then you will plan something useless. I'm bored. You will go and do something useless. Do some work. Do some work. So that never be bored. Do something or the other. Work is the mission of man. Without it, man will get lost in the darkness of ignorance and tamas. See, the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Tamas is the worst. Rajas is better than tamas. Rajas is better than tamas. So if you are really always lethargic, it is better to do some work to get rid of the lethargy. And what kind of work? Best way to make rajas into sattva is work for God. Work thinking about God. Offering the work, dedicating the work to God, whatever work you do, then what is happening now? Although it is rajasic, but that rajasic also is for the Rajadi Raja, for the Supreme Lord. Another rajasa irundhalum, it is for Bhagavan. That is Swarnamaidu. Even though it is rajas, it becomes Swarna. In Sanskritla, Rajata, abdina silver. It is silver. Rajata is silver. Even though it is rajas, if it is done for God, it will be transmuted into Swarna, gold. On one occasion, when such mystic subjects were taught to Arjuna, he was puzzled and he asked Krishna, Epo abdina Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita around 4th chapter or something. Bhagavan is on the one hand talking about jnana, everything, Brahman alone is real. Next day he says, fight the war, you have to do the work. Well, Arjuna naturally was confused. He said, what are you saying? On the one hand, you are saying we should renounce all karma, sarva karma, parityagam. On the other hand, you are saying karma yoga is to be adopted. Now tell me which of these two paths is better. You yourself tell me. Apo, Krishna answered in this manner, sannyasa and karma yoga both lead you to the goal of liberation. But Arjuna, know this, there is greater joy in doing work than in not doing work. There is greater joy in doing work than in giving up work. Sannyasa and work are not contradictory. They are interdependent, complementary. By giving up work, man will decline. Without the progress derived from activity and the training achieved through it, we will only become kshinichpadu. We will reduce. Even if you keep sitting, even your muscles will waste away. No? Even your muscles will waste away. Even your bones will become weak. Yeah, we are keep walking, otherwise you will get varicose veins. Cholesterol only will go up. We've got to walk, we've got to do some activity. This physical activity. Similarly, mind also. Mental activity is also necessary. Otherwise, mind will also rust. It will become dull. So, by giving up work, you will only decline. The real sannyasi, who is the real sannyasi? The real sannyasi is one who does not like one thing and dislike another. Most important qualification of a sannyasi. A real sannyasi is the one who renounces his likes and dislikes. The word sannyasa can well be applied to work done without regard to success or failure, profit or loss, honor or dishonor, to any activity that is engaged as an offering to the Lord. What is sannyasa? Doing work is sannyasa. When such work is done without any thought for the fruit of the action, success and failure of the action, praise and blame that is going to come to you as a result of the action, the profit or the loss that is going to come to you as a result of the action, honor and dishonor that is going to come to you. When we do some work, we are stressed. Why are we stressed? What if it goes wrong and everybody laughs at me? Those who laugh at you will forget it in the next moment and walk away. Who is going to remember you? Who is going to remember, hey, that fellow, what he did? They will move away. They will go away. They don't even matter to us. They don't even matter. Why are we bothered about people who don't matter? Who matters? Actually, nobody matters. I read a beautiful story once. A man was working in the US. He had moved from India to US, migrated to USA, settled down there for many years. He was living there, became very wealthy. And on one of his usual trips to India to see his father, he wanted to take his father to a treat. So he took him to the most expensive 5-star restaurant in India. in the city in which they were living. So the whole place was so posh. Everybody was like, fashionistas. And this father was the usual fellow wearing slippers, wearing faded trousers and a shirt which is not tucked in. A typical Indian for dad look இருக்கும். ஒரு அரக்கை சட்டை, ஒரு ஹாஃப் ஸ்லீவ் ஷர்ட்டு, ஒரு பேண்ட்டு, அந்த பேண்ட் இங்கே வரைக்கும் வரும். He typically walked in like that. Google him. You will find a picture of him. The typical Indian dad. This man obviously is wearing designer t-shirt and designer jeans and designer shoes and everything. But the father is wearing some Bata sandals and some Beta shorts, Beta pants, and something is wearing and going. So father is looking at this whole place, looking at everybody, and he says, should we come and eat here? It's okay. Shall we not? Shall we go away from here? I don't feel I'm a good fit. No, Pa, come. It's okay, Dad. You come. The son takes the father. There they are having they sit down to have a meal. Pata, everything is so complicated. Amma mama ku enna theriyum? Edhiyo elaya potta chaatha pisinju vaangi saapida theriyum. Avladhaan theriyum mama ku. Yeah. Put the banana leaf, he will sprinkle water, wash it. அப்புறம் சாதம் வந்தனா நீ எப்படி பரிசேஷனை மட்டும் சாப்பிடுவார் பாட்டு. That's all he used to know. இங்கே பார்த்தா somebody is coming with only an empty plate. Then suddenly spoons are kept here, forks are kept here. அது 2 spoons here, 2 forks here, then another spoon over there. குட்டி குட்டியா ஒரு இந்த சைஸ்ல ஸ்பூன், அந்த சைஸ்ல ஸ்பூன், டெசர்ட் ஸ்பூன், சூப் ஸ்பூன், சாலட் fork, டெசர்ட் fork அப்படின்னு அப்படியே கட்டளையா வந்துட்டே இருக்கு. சாப்பாடே காணும். Food is not coming. Napkin is coming. Plate is coming. Cutlery is coming. இவர் பார்த்துட்டே இருக்கேன், என்னதுராக நடக்கிறது இங்கே. ஷிஷோ பார்த்தா everybody is talk சத்தம் தான் கேட்குது. நம்ம மாமா is not used to these things. So by the time finally food comes, அவர் எத்தையோ டொக்குங்கிறார், ஒன்றும் வரமாட்டேங்கிறது. Nothing is getting cut, nothing is coming. ஃபோர்க்கும் வரல, நைஃபும் வரல. முடிக்கிறார். ஏன்டா இங்கே கூட்டு வந்தேன், where is this boy brought me? But he wants to make the boy happy, the son happy, அதனால he is keeping quiet. In the end, while eating something, doing something, not knowing, everything was such a clutter, everything was so overwhelming for him, he knocked down a big dish. Crash. And in the posh restaurant, everybody is having subdued conversations. நம்ம சரவண பவன் கத்தி நடப்பா, இது ஏதோ பாஷ் சத்தம் தான் கேட்குறது. அதில் கிராஷ். So the entire restaurant turned. He was the source of the sound. The man is mortified, totally mortified. The father, not the son, the father, mortified. The son quickly beckons the waiter. Please clear the dish and bring another one. Say, yes, sir. At the end of it all, they finish uncomfortably, the father finishes his meal. Finally, they're going out. As they're going out, a stranger, a person who was watching this whole show, saw it. And he came and told the son, it seems. He said, excuse me for a minute, can I talk to you? Yes. I was observing the whole thing, your whole demeanor I was observing. Obviously, your father was not used to this. I'm assuming it's your father, obviously he was not used to it. But you had the most perfect demeanor. And you are not the slightest embarrassed by all of his antics. You are not the slightest disturbed by any of those things. How did you accomplish this? That man said, he's my father. Since I was born, he's the one who looked after me, brought me up, did everything to me. All the people here are strangers. I don't know any of them. I've never met them before, including you. I don't know if I'll ever meet you again. He's my father. He's my life. He has been throughout my life, and I will be there until the end of his life. Who do you think matters more to me? Whose opinion do you think matters more to me? Is it the opinion of my father that matters to me, or the opinion of absolutely, completely, total strangers that matters to me? Abhini asked. It sounds beautiful, isn't it? The sentiment. Extend it a little bit more. Even your father's opinion does not matter as much as the Heavenly Father's opinion matters. In the end, even that father and the mother are strangers only. You have no guarantee that they were there with you last birth, nor will you have any guarantee that they might be with you in the next birth. And Ishvara, the Heavenly Father and the Heavenly Mother will be with us. Our Father who is in heaven is also in our heart. He will always be with us. So, when work comes, we get stressed about the work, of the success of the work, the failure of the work, the honor and the dishonor. What will people say? Who cares what people say? Does it really matter? Everybody will say, yeah, no. Nobody will come to help you when you need it. What is the use of the opinions of people who will merely pass opinions without doing anything else to you? Bhagavan is going to be there in the hour of your need. Apad Bandhava. Whose opinion counts? For whose sake should you work? For whose opinion whom should you seek to impress? Bhagavan is the one you should be always impressing. When is he impressed, Abdina? He is impressed when you do the work without bothering about the results. Let anybody laugh at me. Potruvar, potralum, tutruvar, tutralum, pogattum, kaddanukke. The praise of those who are praising me and the criticism of those who are criticizing me are all going to Bhagavan Krishna only. Nothing to me. I am working for Krishna's sake. If the whole world should laugh at me, but he should smile at me, then I am more interested in his smile of love than the laughter of the world. Yeah? But we are more bothered about the feelings of the people, the opinions of people. What will they say? What will they think of me? What will they judge me? Who cares? They are of no use to you. Their opinions do not matter. You should know whose opinion matters. Adhanale, without regard to success or failure, profit or loss, honor or dishonor. Tell me, when there is a work that you have got to do, when are you stressed about it? When are you stressed about work? When are you stressed about it? You are going to do some gardening. You have to water the plants. Are you stressed about it? Are you stressed about it? No. Yeah, no. Nobody is watching you. Plants are not going to say anything to you. Hey, Chichi, water fellow, you are watering me. I'm plant to tell Is the plant going to make fun of you, mock you for the way you are watering the plant? So you're not bothered. Plant is not going to praise you also. Aha, nobody can water me like you. I've seen many people water me, but you are the best waterer. But your plant is not going to praise you. It is not going to criticize you. Nothing. You're not bothered. And you're standing there. It is not stressful to you. Suppose you have to talk in front of 10 people. Will you be stressed? Guaranteed you'll be stressed. Yeah, no. 10 people, what will they think about me? What will they say? As though they are going to go home and laugh at you. They are busier than that. And they have poorer memories than that. They have 10 other things to occupy their brains. You think they are going to spend their time thinking about you? First of all, even if they do, you don't care about them. You care only about him. Is he going to be pleased? Who should we be looking at? In Parthi, no? In Prashanti, they used to put a place. This is not in the old time plays used to happen in Purnachandra Hall. Purnachandra Hall, if there's on the stage, if the play is happening, if a drama is happening, Swami also be sitting down in the D. Everybody will be able to watch it. Then when Swami made Kulwanta Hall his permanent place, the funny thing was, in those days, Swami used to live in Mandir. Place used to take place in Purnachandra. When Swami moved to Purnachandra, place used to take place in Kulwant, in Sai Kulwant Hall. Have you seen those plays? Have you seen them? No, you could not have seen them. Don't lie to me. You could not have seen them because nobody looked at you. They were only looking at Swami. You were all sitting behind those people. Who could have seen a play in Prashanti? Tell me. Nobody can see the play in Prashanti because Swami is sitting on top there. There's a small clearing in which the play is happening. Everybody, all the other people are sitting behind this. So nobody, you're only seeing the backs of the thing. They don't even turn towards you to act. Isn't it? We are sitting there to watch a play. What play? There's nothing, you can only see their backs in play. Nothing else is happening. Back in motion. There's a physiotherapy clinic, chain called Back in Motion in Australia. And all backs in motion you can see. But they are not bothered because they are not doing it for you. They are doing it for him. They are doing it for Swami. Because they are doing it for Swami, they are not interested in who is watching and who is not watching. Maybe they have decorated themselves, makeup and all in the front. Back like a chamchan. So what? 50,000 people are going to see their backs. One person is going to see the front. All the decoration was for that one person. 50,000 people, you are in the back. You better be back. I have thrown you to the back of my mind as well. So, our life also should be like Prashanti play in Sai Kulwant Hall. The entire show is only for the sake of Swami, not for the rest. The rest are all participants only. The rest are not spectators. Am I a clown for the world? If at all I am a clown of God. Even if I must be a clown, I am God's clown. I am not the entertainment piece for the world. That is why when the king asked Tyagaraja to come to the court and sing, he said, "Chi, why will I sing for you? I am singing for Rama. My singing is for Rama. It is not for Nara, not for a human being. It is for Narayana. It is for the Lord." When we are doing exclusively for the Lord, what is the nature of the Lord? Is he going to judge us on success and failure? Never. In fact, if you fail in front of the Lord, you will probably attract more of his compassion and sympathy than if you succeed. When a small innocent child goes and forgets its line in front of Swami, what do you think will be Swami's reaction? What will be Swami's reaction? Chi, forgot the line. Swami. No, on the other hand, your face will melt to compassion. You forgot the line. Small child. That's why you forgot the line. Swami will defend you to everybody. Even if you must make a mistake, he will only find it cute. He will find it adorable. Such a Lord who will find even our mistakes cute and adorable, should we not put up our play for him? What is the use of the world that will constantly carp and criticize? Why should I feel stressed out for the sake of the world that does not matter to me? Ishvara matters to me. This is sannyasa. If you act in this manner, such an action itself is sannyasa. It is not karma, it is karma sannyasa. That is the best path. There is ananda in karma, there is ananda also in sannyasa, in renunciation. But what is the best renunciation? That renunciation which happens whilst doing action but renouncing all the associated nonsense such as success and failure, profit and loss. Bhagavan is only looking at our attitude, not the outcomes. The world may be interested in the outcomes. If you fail, they will say, what's the use? You're useless. Bhagavan is not interested in outcomes. Bhagavan is interested only in your readiness, in your attitude. Are you ready to do anything for him? He is already happy. You have not even done anything. He is already happy that you are ready to do. Such a sweet Lord. Adanala, never work for the world. Never work to win the approbation and the approval of the world. Even if you think, oh, but he is my boss and I must get his approval, not necessary. There is a boss of your boss. Boss of the entire universe. And there is no hierarchy. The beauty of this boss is, if you forge a relationship with him, then you become a direct report to him. You don't have to go through a big relationship, big hierarchy chain. Ishvara right on top. It's no parampara. Guru parampara is different, but there is no reporting parampara to the Lord. Appuram modalla Ishvara, adukappuram Brahma, adukappuram Indra, adukappuram some king or some president, adukappuram some layers illa, CEO, no such layers for God. The greatest boss, who is the boss of all boss, can become your direct boss if you have a relationship with him. That is what we want. That is the state we should aim to aspire to attain. Sannyasa devoid of karma yoga will lead to grief only. Giving up all actions, you cannot live. Swami says, how can you live without action? Without karma, you cannot live. At least, even if you give up all actions, should we not sing to him? Should we not call out his name? Is that not karma? What kind of a life is a life where I won't do anything, I won't do anything now? Bhajan mandla No, I won't even do bhajan sabna. What a loser you are. Why not enjoy the Lord? How much ever you may avoid karma, is it not necessary to at least engage yourself in the remembrance of the Lord in dhyana and japa? That too is karma. If these are given up, there is no joy in life. Whoever he may be, man has to do some karma, whatever the form of the work. He who engages in karma yoga, renouncing all thoughts of fruits of the action, following the discipline of silence, can in a very short time realize the Brahman. Suddenly, in the midst of everything, Swami puts a big nugget. Or direct instruction. He who engages in karma yoga. Karma is different, karma yoga is different. Karma yoga. What is the difference? Yoga, it is a worship. Yoga means it's a sadhana. Karma is action. Karma yoga is action done as a sadhana. So there's a difference between merely doing action and doing karma yoga. So he who engages himself in karma yoga, that means doing all actions in dedication to the Lord, without concerning himself about the fruits of the action, and following the discipline of silence. That all known about us. All of a sudden, out of the blue, from left field, something comes. In silence. Maintaining silence. Can realize the Brahman very soon. This is something we've got to spend some time upon. In silence. Maintaining the discipline of silence. Mauna. What is this discipline of silence? And how does it apply to Karma Yoga? It's common to most of us. When we've done a task and nobody knows about it, what will we do? We've done something for somebody or something nice, but nobody knows about it. Unfortunately, nobody knows about it. Not that we wanted it that way. Unfortunately, what to do when we were doing it, nobody was around. What will you do? We'll broadcast it. I only did. The other day, I only did. Nasuka chalu. Nice. Not boasting. Just fact. Matter of fact, we will say, I only did. Or, if something goes wrong with it, we will complain. We will go on complaining. But if you stop both of these things, then we have attained silence. Do the task silently. Nobody needs to know. Success and failure do not matter. In fact, it is another thing. Suppose you've done a task. Suppose you wanted to make a surprise. You wanted to bake a cake for evening session. And you burnt it to a crisp. There's no time to make anything. You quietly come and sit down for satsang. You will not, I made a cake today, but it all burnt. You will not say, you will keep quiet. And it didn't succeed. Since it didn't succeed, there's no need to broadcast it. Quiet out. When you succeeded, cake is there. Everybody's surprised. Nobody saw you put the cake there. Some problem. You came first and you put the cake there. Nobody saw you. Then cake is there and then, hey cake, where's the cake come from? Where did the cake come from? But we can't keep quiet. Humility, with some humility it will come. What to do, because we know we have to be humble. But adanala we will we will want to broadcast. If it is a failure, we will never open our mouth about it. But what is it? Success and failure is what is making us open our mouth about it. In silence, it doesn't matter. Success or failure, nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to know who did it. It's very hard to not want to take credit, especially when everybody is praising it and you've done it. Everybody is praising it, but nobody knows. Or even worse, they attribute it to the wrong person. You have done it, but instead they say, she's baked this cake, it's so nice. That person is not there to defend or say, no, I didn't bake it. How will you feel? You baked the cake, you did all the work, You came and kept it here. Unfortunately, nobody was there. This is the problem, coming early. Why did I come early? I should have come last and kept it in front of everybody. Everybody would have known. Nobody was there, unfortunately. Only these gods were there. They will keep quiet. They won't open their mouth and defend me when they need it. Will they say, oh, no, she made it chalo pora? They will also keep quiet. Unfortunately, I pretended nobody was there to watch it. And now they are saying somebody else made it. If we can keep silent in that state, that means there is no sense of ownership at all. There is no sense of doership and no sense of ownership. Mamakara, ahankara, mamakara are not there. Why will we not realize the Brahman soon? So silence is not silence. Not merely verbal silence. What Swami is talking about here, what Swami is referring to here in the form of silence is that mental silence where you are unagitated, unaffected by the authorship, ownership, doership of the action. Ramana Bhagavan would compose something. And then what would he do, Abhina? He will write somebody else's name in it. And they will come and say, Bhagavan, can you please compose something and write in my book? So Bhagavan will compose a poem and then put their name and give it to them. Unless they open their mouth and say, no, if anybody just saw the book, they will say, oh, this person has written this poem in Chipa. Bhagavan didn't even bother. No, I only wrote it. Yeah, Jnanathanudiya Shakti. Where am I? Am I only this name and form? Am I not in that name and form? Okay, even if this name and form wrote, what is wrong if that name and form takes the credit, because that is also me? That is also me. Swami in one of his discourses in 1960 says, these days there's a new trend that has come up. People say Satya Sai Baba is even greater than Venkateshwara or Kalahastishwara and so on. This is all foolishness. This is all foolishness. Who do you think is standing there on that hill? It is also me. Swami is coming from that broadness. We are trying to elevate Swami. Oh, Swami is even greater than Venkateshwara. Speech. Maybe they said because Sri Venkateshwara only stays on top of the hill, you have to go walk to him. Swami walks and comes in between you. He comes walking amidst you. Therefore, Swami is even greater than Venkateshwara. Somebody may have said. But Swami says, how foolish is that? Because who do you think is standing there on top of the seven hills? That is also me. See that broadness. Vishwam Hridayamasya. His heart is the entire universe. I am in every being. I alone am. Therefore, even if that person has done, it is me doing. And even if I have done, it is that person doing. Because there is no that person and to me. It's all the same. One Brahman, one Ishvara is existing. And that Ishvara is doing everything. How does it matter what name and form are fixed onto it? It is Ishvara who is doing everything. That realization, only Shanti can give us that realization. That alone is really sannyasa. Sannyasa is to give up this authorship also of one's works. To give up even the authorship of one's work. A sannyasi should not be bothered about plagiarism. No, copyright. No. What is the copyright? I have told you many times. Copy it right. That is copyright. Don't copy it wrong. They have written something, you should copy it correctly. It's copy wrong. So what is copyright? Copy it right. Don't copy it wrong. Otherwise, no, mine. I think the concept is not there. If the rishis all said mine, will we get the Vedas? Will we get the Upanishads? No, mine. Not for anybody. If they keep it to themselves, will we get anything? Everything they give it up. Open up. Like that. This is not for only something that you write or create. Any work that you do, we cannot become the authors of that work. It's all his. He is the doer. I cannot take any doership for it. So if we live in this life, then that becomes sannyasa, such a sannyasa, where the fruit is disregarded and joy is derived from merely doing the action for the sake of God. That itself is the joy. Then one gets prashanti, undisturbed inner peace. No one thinks about the results and the benefits of the karma of breathing, is it not? So too, when karma is done, never worry about its result. That gives real shanti. Practical. Again, Swami is giving us a very, very, very practical tip, a very practical instruction. We have got to do work. Nobody can escape from doing work. But do that work for God. Do not do it for anybody else. Even if it is somebody who is asking you to do the job. Your child may say, Amma, make me this. Even when the child says, Amma, make me this, do it for God. Don't do it for the child. Do it for God only. The child may also have it, but do it for God. The trigger may be God in the form of the child. The trigger, how should we take it? The trigger is Ishvara in the form of the child is asking me, I will do it for the sake of that Ishvara only. Not for the child. Child is name and form. Child is the name and form. Ishvara is the Antaryami, the indweller. Do it for the sake of the indweller. Do it for the sake of God. I saw a WhatsApp thing today, which said, you have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, 32 great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, 64, 2048, 9th generation grandparents were 2048. Apo, how much struggle, how much effort, how much sacrifices have gone into making you today? It seemed to be a very noble sentiment. The moment I saw it, I thought, how many times I myself have been all of those, I don't know. What great-grandfather? Maybe I only was my own great-grandfather born again. My sacrifice only. Nobody else's sacrifice. Right? Attachment. Out of my undue attachment, I would have been born at the same thing. I was a first generation grandfather, then third, fourth generation grandfather, then seventh generation grandfather. I don't owe too much to anybody. Most of it was done by me only. Obviously, they presented it as a noble sentiment of being grateful to your ancestors, but trust me and my brain to make a mockery out of it. What nonsense. But what is nonsensical about it? How many people will you be grateful to? Grateful to God. Ishwaran, everything goes to Ishvara, who is the indweller. He is the one who is doing everything in this. See, when I think about it, personally, in my own life, my grandfather came to Swami in 1948. 47 or 48, he went to Swami. And he was the one that was instrumental in us coming to Swami. Because he went and then he spoke about it to my other grandfather. Then other grandfather went and then he came and said, oh no, you must go to Puttaparthi. So we went. So in a way we can say that we owe it to 2 grandparents. But really, who pulled them? Was my grandfather an independent entity who could decide to go to Swami on his own? Swami dragged him. And if I should say Swami dragged him only so that I could come to him, what of it? How does it work? Who do we owe a debt of gratitude to? Only to Ishvara. Only to God. Because He is the one who is taking all these forms and making it happen for us. He has become the great pull that caused the grandfather to go. He became the grandfather also to who went. Ammayum appanumayane bhumiyalaki alli tammagimayayen alkadal vintiyan aandidum munyan mana manni ilthun padathilirithina yalchin mayanam arunachala in aruchitram yenne. Who is that? Who is the one that we should always be grateful to? Only Him. Avan. Uyarnala mudayavan yavan avan. Mayavara madinala marulinan yavan avan. Ayarvara amarargal adhipadi yavan avan. Avan. Angaradhanala Thoyararu Sudaradi Thoyudu Evi Yen Manane. Alvar sings. Everything is Him. Therefore, you worship Him. So all karma that we do is to be done for Him, not for anybody else, for His sake. For His sake alone, because He is the one who is present in all these forms also. So too, when karma is done, never worry about the result. Instead, offer it to Bhagavan, offer it to the Lord, maintain the discipline of silence, and very soon you can realize the Brahman. But while we are going on about the subject of karma, another note comes up. Many ideas take shape in the human heart. We get so many ideas, I should do this, I should do that, we should do this. And they wander to the very end of the 8 directions. Some of them are mutually supporting, some of them are mutually destructive. So what should we do with that? Swami says, without leaving any of them free, they must all be channelized and disciplined to subserve one higher purpose. Only then you can be established in Shanti. You must have some cleverness to achieve this channelization. And this is not cleverness of merely external cleverness and doing things cleverly. Not that cleverness. It lies more in the control and the subjugation of the mental faculties. Each one should inquire well into themselves and strive to ascertain for themselves their own path towards the truth. This is essential for blossoming of the Atma. Until this happens, until you realize your own state, you must move with those who have experienced that truth. And by means of their guidance and inspired by their experience, you should internalize that. Very important instruction that Swami is giving to all of us. So many ideas crop up in the mind. We do not know which one is right, which one should be followed, which one is spiritual. Conflicts all the time happens. What does Swami say here? Some of them are mutually supportive. After going to bhajans, I think I will go and do some service. Mutually supportive work. Some are mutually destructive. Bhajans will go on until 8 o'clock, but the movie starts at 7:30. Around 7:20 I leave bhajans and go to movie. It's mutually destructive work. Become mutually destructive. Like this, several thoughts arise. What should we do with all those thoughts? No matter what they are, what should we do? We've got to inquire and find out how are they related to the truth. And then channelize all of them, discipline all of them, make all of them come under that umbrella of that higher purpose. Is it taking me to God? In this context, I'm always reminded of our uncle Ata, who after making so many trips to India was asked by somebody, by now you should know Hindi. The Australian fellow, India, Hindi nanachikkiradhu. If you're Hindu, you speak Hindi. Ata is going to Telugu Desam. He's going to Puttaparthi. He is Andhra Pradesh. Telugu only, but what is it? Hindi. The Mandu. So this Mandu came and asked him, do you know Hindi? So Arthur thought, for a second Arthur thought within himself, maybe I should learn Hindi because I keep going so many times to India. Maybe it will be useful if I learn Hindi. First thought came. The next thought immediately, the inquiry. Next thought came, but will it take me closer to God? Will it take me closer to Swami? Will it help me realize the truth? Pat came the answer, no. Because no, God realization is not for only Hindi speakers. No? Monopoly. Unless you speak Hindi, Bhagavad साक्षात्कार नहीं होगा. अगर तुम हिंदी नहीं बोलते तो भगवत साक्षात्कार नहीं होगा. नामुमकिन है. अरे नमकीन खाओ जाओ. नामुमकिन हो तो नमकीन खा के सुख रहो. So he said, if it is not going to take me closer to God, then why bother about it? Why waste my time? So he gave up the idea. So in the end, he did not know any Hindi. Only one Hindi he knew. Chalao. Chalao poppy. Chalao. That's all he would say. The only bit of Hindi he knew was chalao. Otherwise he only knew South Indian languages. Masala dosa. Idli and masala dosa. That's all he knew. Yeah? What does it show? What does it point? So many ideas come. I will learn Hindi. What idea? Why? Why learn Hindi? You should think about it. Even in school, I will choose this subject. Why? Is it going to take you close to God? What subject should you take? The one that will give you least stress, if possible. That will take you close to God. At least that will take you close to God. Are you stress or subject? Will it take you close to God? We don't think about taking close to God. We think about taking us close to the bank. Dabbu. Which subject should I take so that which job will bring me the highest amount of money? So my subjects are chosen based on dollar value. But naturally stresses our Lord. Where are we going to extricate ourselves and reach the Lord? Yedo ihamulu sukimpa hemataraka vidya. Paramulu sukimpa brahma vidya. We've got to be happy here, we've got to live happily here, we've got to make ends meet. But ends meet, you know what it means? Belt, wear the belt around the waist. If the waist is small, the ends meet. the ends meet very quickly. It is not difficult to make the ends meet. If the waist is like this, then you have to struggle to make the ends meet. What does it mean? If the wants are more, then it is difficult to make ends meet. It depends on how long is the string, no, to make the ends meet. If the string is short, my ends meet quickly. If my lifestyle is simple, if I don't have many wants, some jeevitam is enough for me, but rest of it can be spent in spirituality. Rest of it can be spent for God. Then the question arises, don't we need doctors? Don't we need engineers? How many spiritual people are there in this world? Are not the others enough to look after all those needs for us? Do you also have to volunteer? Though you are one person who has got some kind of exposure towards spirituality. There are millions upon millions who have none whatsoever and they are quite happy to become doctors. They are quite happy to become lawyers. They are quite happy to become engineers. They are quite happy to do all of those high grade professions. Let them do it. For us, ends meet, it is enough. For us, if ends meet, it is enough. Let us meet Him. Struggling to make ends meet, we never get to meet Him. When are we going to meet God? When are we going to make Him one with us? So, all activities that we do, doesn't matter what it is. You're learning something, what purpose? I'm learning music, for what? To sing to Him. Finished. So I can sing nicely to Him. With my heart connected, I can sing to Him. Actually speaking, you don't need to learn music to connect to Him. Because no matter how you sing, you can still connect to Him. Of course, He will find it unbearable. Adhikahi you have to learn music. For His sake, so that He can listen to some good music. Okay. I'm learning something. For what? What is the purpose? Is it related to God? Is it related to serving Him? Is it channelized and disciplined towards that goal? If not, then I'm wasting my time. And I wanted to learn Sanskrit. Imagine, Sanskrit, not some ordinary nonsense. Sanskrit, I asked Swami, I want to learn Sanskrit. Why? To understand all the scriptures. Is that all? Okay, you'll understand. No need to learn. Go. So I didn't learn. I can understand. Finished. Well, time saved. All the time was saved. Instead of sitting and learning Rama, 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 Hey Rama, Hey Rama, Hey Rama. Vibhaktis. Again and again Sanskrit Vibhaktis you have to learn. Keep learning Sanskrit grammar. I didn't have to learn anything. Karpari, Rama Pirana, Lal Matran Karparona. You are Nasana. Rama, 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 Shiva, Rama Pirandane Katuno. Tirupati Rama Vibhakti. Akaranta Pullinga Rama Shabdaha. Apne arm che Rama, Rama, Rama. Rama, if you learn it is enough. Bhagavan, if you learn it is enough. Ella Manduru. All knowledge will awaken within you when you know the Lord. You don't need to waste your time learning anything. Nothing new. What did Ramakrishna Paramhansa tell me? Even when his brother wanted him to study, he said, what is the use of mere education that helps me pack up rice and banana? When Kunju Swami wanted to learn Saiva Siddhanta, Ramana Bhagavan says, what did I learn? Go within, everything comes out. What did Swami learn? What did Swami learn? Everything through to school, bench. He didn't even study properly, they made him stand up on the bench. What did he learn? The so-called Mahatmas, Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, what did he learn? He was even a teacher in school, but what is the use? He threw everything away and came. All endeavors, whatever activity that we are doing, Swami makes it very clear here. You may have many ideas, but all those ideas, without leaving anything free, they must all be channelized and directed to serve a higher purpose. What that higher purpose is, if we still don't understand, then you better not come for any of the sessions. attaining Him, serving Him, rejoicing in Him, giving joy to Him, making Him find joy in us. That is what in Parthi, and the boys used to sing or play instruments or put up plays and so on. Ella for what? Swami, for Swami, for Swami, for Swami. Nothing else. No other. Ella Swami, 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 Swami. So if they would practice for Swami, what a glorious life that would be. There are some people who studied hard so that they can get a gold medal from Swami. Adukku Swami da. For everything, the goal was Swami. The goal is the Lord, then your life is worth living. It will be a breeze. It won't be stressful. It will be happy. The moment we forget that goal, even if one activity is left free, Swami says here, but without leaving them free, all of them must be channelized and disciplined towards the higher purpose. Because if you leave even one free, that will come and haunt you. It will come and bite you later. That one thing will rob your peace away, your shanti away. Sarvam Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Sarvam Saishwararpanamastu. Actually, everything should be offered to Bhagavan for His sake to attain Him. Then we can live a happy life. Because success and failure in these endeavors do not matter. He is not going to be bothered about the success and failure of it. When He is not bothered, why are we bothered? When Bhagavan Himself is not bothered about success and failure, why should we be bothered? Bhagavan will make everything happen. He'll say, do it. We will do it. Whether you succeed or fail, yatna prayatna mulmanava dharmamu jayapajayamu deivadhinamu satyasaramu telasiko anna. Yatna prayatna mulmanava dharmamu. To put in the effort is our human dharma. Jayapajayamu daivadhinamu. Success and failure are in divine hands. If He wants us to succeed, even though all our efforts have been rotten, we will succeed. He is not interested in us succeeding. He is interested in us putting in the effort. Why should He be interested in us putting in the effort? Because effort becomes an opportunity for us, a window for us to concentrate on Him, to think of Him by dedicating that effort to Him. When we do an effort, we have an opportunity of living for Him, of doing something for Him. So He likes us to do the effort. Not for the sake of the effort, nor for the sake of the outcome, but for the sake of the fact that that effort can be dedicated towards Him, channelized towards Him. You understand? That is why Karma Yoga. We must do work. Why? Then how else will you have an opportunity to serve Him? Every task that comes to us, not that we go seeking it, every task that comes to our lot, falls to our lot, we do it as an offering to Him. That much is enough. We will stop here for this afternoon and come back again in the evening at 7:30. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayam, sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukhabhag bhavet, loka samastah sukhino bhavantu, loka samastah sukhino bhavantu, loka samastah sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Sai Ishwarar Panamastu.